In an earlier video, I focused on the sources of conflict. In this video, I want to look at the stages of conflict, how to spot it as it rises to a peak, and then the stages you can expect as you de-escalate conflict back down to an acceptable professional environment. The sources of conflict often boil down to four things. They're either conflicts around needs, in which my needs conflict with your needs. Or maybe it's about rights, when I perceive what I am entitled to conflicts with what you perceive to be your entitlement. Third, fear is the strongest emotion, and therefore it can fuel conflict. And finally, respect is a kind of social glue, and where respect is lacking, conflict is often the result. Conflict typically rises through a number of stages, and it descends through a number of stages too, giving rise to what I think of as the conflict boomerang. On the left of the boomerang, we can see the rising level of conflict, which starts with no conflict at all, when we are in accord. Next, we see some minor level of irritation, and that turns to resistance. You disrespect me, you have something I need, you impinge upon my rights, you scare me, and I resist. That resistance turns into a strong emotion, usually, in the case of conflict, anger. When we become angry, we lose control of ourselves, and therefore we lose our respect for the other person, and that often manifests in some form of abuse. Of course, at its extreme, that abuse can become physical abuse, and that becomes violence, the very peak of conflict. And of course, in our projects, we're very keen to turn the tide, to reverse the process before it reaches violence. Before we look at the de-escalation process and the other side of the boomerang, I want to look at what some of the leading indicators are that we can see in other people that conflict is starting to emerge. The first sign is gross posture, and it can work in a number of ways. First, if someone is getting assertive and aggressive and starting to get angry, they may lean in towards someone, imposing upon their physical space, taking up more physical space. They may open out their body. Or another sign of conflict is to pull away, fear that conflict is rising, making ourselves smaller and further from the potential perceived source of that conflict. We also see gestures. And at the outset of conflict, we often see reassuring gestures, like face touching, covering up our mouth to avoid us saying something we'll regret. A similar gesture is eye blocking or eye rubbing, almost trying not to see what we think is happening or about to happen. A furrowed brow indicates we're struggling with an idea, and we may even touch it as we try to massage our brain to accommodate something we are fearful of. As we get more nervous about the impending conflict, our self-comforting becomes more intense and we move down the body, touching our neck, playing with our neckline, jewellery around the neck, or a collar or a tie indicates a greater level of discomfort, which we can see is growing when we get hand wringing, people playing with their hands and their fingers. If you see body hugging, that's an even stronger reassurance signal. And at its greatest height of anxiety, people will start to rub the body, almost to stroke themselves. As conflict rises, the aggressor is likely to puff themselves up, their eyes will open wider and their mouth will open wider too. These are simple animal-based gestures. The earlier you recognize the signs of impending conflict, the more choices you have about diffusing it and de-escalating it quickly with the minimum of trouble. And this goes either if the conflict is directed at you, if you are the source of the conflict, or if you are a neutral third party observing it. So what are the stages of de-escalating conflict? Well, the first is to make a positive choice to engage with the process of de-escalation. If you are part of the conflict situation, that's about making a positive choice to step back from the escalating conflict and then to try to bring it down. If you're an outsider, it means stepping into the situation with a resourceful mindset, a respectful attitude, and a desire to de-escalate the conflict efficiently, effectively, and harmlessly for the combatants. And that means that step 2 is to make contact. Again, if you're part of the conflict situation, to speak to the other person in a respectful manner. If you are outside of the conflict situation, to speak to both parties. Next, you need to build rapport. You need to encourage the other party, or both parties, to participate in the de-escalation and to appreciate their willingness to help out. Show that you understand the other person or the other people's positions. Show empathy, because we trust someone who clearly understands our situation. Now look for an opportunity to understand points of view. If you are involved directly in the potential conflict, then give yourself the opportunity to listen to the other person's point of view without reacting. Ask some questions, listen respectfully, respond cautiously. If you are facilitating a de-escalation among two other people, then ask good questions, listen carefully, and encourage both parties to be respectful of one another as they share their perceptions, their version of reality. Find common ground among them. Next, we need to find criteria to resolve the conflict. We need to collaborate, either the two of us in conflict or the three of us as I facilitate de-escalation. Find out what the desired outcomes are, what a good resolution needs to look like. When you've done that, it's time to explore options for possible solutions. How could we resolve this? What is our understanding of the situation, and what are the options we have before us? Finally, select an option, offer a resolution, make a commitment yourself for the part that you're going to play in resolving the conflict. Once you've made a decision about what that right resolution looks like, you can start work on agreeing the steps you need to take. And of course, that isn't conflict, that's working together. You have de-escalated the conflict. If this topic is of interest to you, we have a video program dealing with conflict in projects which examines this in great detail. It looks at a whole range of conflict-related topics about understanding and resolving conflict and the tools you have available to you. You can find links to learn more about the course in the description below, and critically, you'll also find a coupon code so that you can get a discount on the course if it's something you want to pursue. So take a look at the description below, but critically, be aware of the signs of rising conflict and step in as early as possible to resolve it, to de-escalate it, and to restore the situation to an equable and respectful relationship. Please do give a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. There's loads more great project management content to come, so of course do subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.